So you've decided to play poker, and during, let's say, a tournament, you're dealt a hand, and this guy is sitting across the table from you. It folds down to you and the button, and you decide to raise. The small blind folds, and this guy's in the big blind, and he calls. The flop comes. Let's just say Queen 7-3, and he checks. What do you do? Well, you look back down at your cards, and you have the ace of spades and the queen of clubs. Hmm, let's see. Well, this guy is Jason Koon, a very decorated professional poker player, one of the top pros in the world, at least for a time. And he believes there's about 20 decisions that one could come up with, and that's just scratching the surface. In one of the great articles of recent poker, Jason Koon outlines the 20 or so decision points that you can make on any time it is your turn to act in poker. What range of hands do I continue here? What is my opponent's ranges? How does my opponent interact? How does the board interact with all of the ranges? Who's the best? Who's the board best for? Stack sizes, stack to pot ratio, etc., etc., etc. This game is getting pretty complicated. That's where I come in, guys. As your awesome poker coach, I'm going to simplify this down and I'm going to give you a tool, perhaps a weapon that you can use at least on the flop. And I'm going to dive into this deeply in this video, and it's going to be called the range bet. So, back to the hand. Now Jason doesn't look so nice. He looks pretty serious. And he checks to you, giving you the stare down. What do you do? Well, the reason I didn't put our hand here is because our hand doesn't matter too much. But what's the typical thought process look like for someone not versed in, let's just say, advanced poker training? Well, I said you had ace queen, right? Well, we have top pair, top kicker. Hmm, maybe we should bet. How big do we bet? Okay, let's just say we usually go about half pot here. We bet half pot. What does Jason do? He folds after about 3 seconds. Okay. Let's rewind. Let's rewind. Let's just say this time we have Queen 5 of spades. Okay? And he checks again. And we think to ourselves, well, this time I have a bad kicker. So I need to protect against maybe 2 pair. We bet half pot again. And he folds. Hmm. This is this is getting tough. Okay. Let's let's start all over. Hmm. We have pocket threes this time. We have bottom set. Surely we bet. We leave the queen open. We leave the 7 open. We're going to stack queen 7. We're going to stack queen 3. We're going to stack ace queen, right? He checks to us. What do we do with our pocket 3? Bottom set. We bet half pot, and he folds again. Does this guy see through the cards? Is he that good? Maybe our sizing is too big. Maybe we're doing something wrong. Maybe we should check back our ace queen. Maybe we should check back our, let's say, a7. Maybe we should bet a7. What do we do with pocket sevens? Pocket queens. Ace 9, ace 8, jack 8, 8 8. Pocket sixes, pocket fives, 5 4. What about 8 9? What do we do with all these hands? I will give you the answer again. We range bet.
All right, that's enough. Look, we're all very impressed with Andy's new toy.
Toy?
T-O-Y. Toy.
Excuse me, I think the word you're searching for is Space Ranger.
The word I'm searching for, I can't say because there's preschool toys present.
Getting kind of tense, aren't you?
Oh, Mr. Lightyear, now I'm curious. What does a Space Ranger actually do?
Ooh, our friend the solver is back. Now let's not get too bogged down into this. I'm going to simplify it for you. Every time you see color this colored in red, all the hands, the combinations with red is a bet. It looks like on this Queen 7-3 board that basically every single hand gets bet except for Ace 9 suited. Let's not worry about, oh, and Ace 9 off. Let's not worry about that for now. Even Ace 10 and Ace 8, which I think is the lowest frequency along with Ace 8, 9 8 off, they get bet at some frequency. So let's simplify this. Let's bet our entire range. Now, small bets in poker have been in vogue recently, especially in the last couple years, ever since the advent of solvers. The reason for this, the player using these small bets usually is around 1/3 pot or 1/4 pot or maybe 1/5 pot. They're range betting. That means they are betting every hand in the range. So all those hands I said earlier, like Ace 9, Ace 8, Jack 8, Pocket 8s, Pocket 6s, Pocket 5s, Pocket 3s, 5-4, 8-9, Ace Queen suited, Pocket Aces, etc. I am betting with all of those. We are not doing what old school poker sort of was doing on the flop, and that is they were splitting their range into a sort of big bet strategy. And now, the thing about this, and I can't really do it, I can't really show you precisely in this solver, but range betting and splitting your bet is not giving up almost any EV, and the EV it's giving up is negligible. What do I mean by that? I mean, let's say we have ace queens here. Okay, I think we could probably show this. Ace queen offsuit. Here, here in the bottom right are all the combinations. Shows the EV. Now, betting 1/3. Let's just look at the ace of hearts and ace of spades combo right here. The EV between betting 33% pot and betting 50% pot are basically the same. We go down here, 29 and 34, 28, 33. Checking with ace of clubs is the same as betting 1/3. And the highest EV is actually betting half pot. But if we're going to compare the two bets, half and 1/3, they, for all intents and purposes, have basically the same EV. So what we're doing here is we're simplifying the strategy. Instead of knowing which hands need to bet for half pot, which hands need to check, which hands need to overbet, etc., we're just going to say, hey, this 5 points of EV that I'm losing by betting 1/3, we're just going to do that with all our hands. And we're going to see the reaction of our opponent, who's out of position, mind you, on a rainbow board, how they're going to react to this. Now, against someone like Jason Koon, this might be difficult. He might understand which hands to check raise, which hands to bluff with the check raise. But when you're facing someone like, let's say you're facing a tight knit old guy, old man coffee, whenever he check raises, okay, he has pocket sevens, he has pocket threes. You just fold. If you're facing a maniac and you range bet and you have ace queen, you just hold on for dear life and you pay the three streets. This range bet is going to simplify the strategy more, and it's going to make your flop play on very sort of quiet, dry boards, it's going to simplify it so that you don't have to study each individual spot like a computer, because as we know, it's impossible to study these spots like a computer and know that you're betting these frequencies with all the different hands. I mean, it's actually impossible. So we aren't going to show a turn, but the turn is usually when we start um, splitting the range. The big blind strategy, the hands that are in green are the hands that you can call. So you could kind of see in your head, oh, okay, I'm range betting this flop. Now, now what you do when you have your own solver up is this is what you study. You study the hands in green. Okay, he's gonna be calling pretty much hands that have the queen. He's gonna be raising sets. He's gonna be raising some straight draws, the the combinations with red in it. And this is sort of how you go ahead and study instead of individual picking each bet sizes and then seeing what the solver does. This is going to really simplify your flop play, and it's a great tool because it does two things. It disguises your hand, and it could actually exploit your opponent. It could exploit him in two ways. One, he sees the small bet, and he just thinks that small means weakness when really you're doing it with every hand, including your strong hands. You're doing it with aces, and you're doing it with 10-8 off. You either induce or you make a lot of hands not maintain the minimum defense frequency. And here is the chapter I go a little bit into theory and some of the math. Oh no, mathematical equations. When Stephen Hawking wrote his very famous book, A Brief History of Time, his publisher said, for every mathematical equation you have in your book, you will lose at least 10,000 readers. Well, I'm just going to go over this quickly not to lose you guys. I'm not going to bog you down into the math, but if you do want to get into the mathematics of poker, just Google minimum defense frequency and you'll get into it. So what the minimum defense frequency is the amount of a player's range that must continue when facing a bet to be unexploitable by bluffing with any two cards. For example, player bets $66 into $100. Here's the equation. We do 100 divided by 100 plus 66, which equals to 0.6, which means the player facing this bet must call 60% of the time to maintain the MDF, and on the flip side, the bettor must force a fold 40% of the time to break even. What does this do? It makes the bluff catchers in the opponent range 0 EV, so indifferent. Remember my last video when we talk about indifference? It makes them so that they sort of have to call these bluff catchers at 0 EV so that it makes the top of your range get paid off more. Now, opponents aren't going to be doing this as much at most stakes, pretty much at every stake. It only happens at the top of the top stakes. Um, but and this kind of goes back to my old video when we talk about indifference. But the point is that there's actually a mathematical equation, and when we go back to our solver, a lot of these hands that are at 0 EV are going to be folding and not maintaining the minimum defense frequency. And as you can see, it should show the full summary of hands. A lot of these hands that should be calling aren't going to be maintaining the minimum defense frequency. The overall range is going to fold out hands that should be calling or maybe have some equity, like for example Jack 10 off. Um, Jack 10 off straight up beats like 8-9, and it's just gonna be folding. And at times, especially facing weaker opponents, they're gonna be totally overfolding to this small bet, which is why small bets work a lot of times when you're facing nits. But the theory behind this small bet as a bluff is the what I've said before. maintaining the minimum defense frequency. I don't want to go too deep into that. There's tons of videos, tons of content, and tons of articles written about minimum defense frequency and optimal bluffing frequencies. This is not what this video is about, but it's something that you maybe should get into if you really want to understand the core of poker strategy. Just to quickly sum up this, why it matters. First of all, no more math formulas for you guys. What this mainly does is simplify flop strategy, as I said before. A lot of people, the next point, I'm just going to move quickly, the thoughts surrounding the connotation of down betting and pot odds. So you're not actually down betting. You're not like betting less because you have a weak hand. You're betting less because in order for the EV not to differentiate too much, you need to make a smaller bet. The smaller the bet, the more hands can be in that bet. It's something that I went over in my last slide talking about indifference and minimum defense frequency. Pot odds, so when you bet 33%, let's say you're laying a really good price, you're laying like 4 to 1, which gives your opponent's draws, uh, mainly flush draws, but I'll throw in some straight draws, pure straight draws. It gives them 0 EV to continue, so you're not actually making the draws minus EV continuation, but that's okay. They're going to continue with that with those hands anyways, so maybe you lose more. But the point is even though you're not making their draws minus EV to continue, you're simplifying your strategy. And unlike we're not solvers, we're not computers. We don't know everything about the game tree. So this is going to be a good strategy. I use it all the time. I mean, I use it constantly. Um, it's just a great strategy. Then you force indifference from a GT opponent's bluff catchers, like I said before in the MDF slide, and you force exploitation from non-GT opponents in the form of minus EV bluff catchers or to induce, like I said before. And the summary, guys, a range bet is a great simplification from a solver strategy to put an opponent's in minus EV situations. That's all you're trying to do in poker. It also helps split the range on the turn and the river, making studying these spots more efficient and hopefully, I should capitalize that, yield more EV. All we're trying to do, guys, in poker is to yield more expected value. That is the name of the game. That is my little video on range bets. Remember, when next time someone bets small on the flop, a block bet sort of thing. On the flop, because we're not going to be betting range um, on the river, you're going to see the computer bet 1/8 on the river, 1/10 on the river, 1/4, 1/3, and up. The river is a different story. We will get into that maybe in the future. But on the flop, remember it is not a down bet because they're showing weakness. It is a range bet. Guys, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Nick Canavino. Please like and subscribe. Any questions down in the comment section. Thank you. Catch you in the next one.